Welcome to an instant reaction edition of Andy Ari On3 presented by Wendy's. It's just me for the moment. Ari is on his way back. We were not prepared for this start time of the game because this all changed yesterday because of what happened. So Ari will be back and we will be together to break all of this down because we now have a full Final Four. We'll be back around 8:45 p.m. Eastern time to break it all down. But we got to talk about this game that just happened because holy crap. What a call by Marcus Freeman to ice this game. What a call. Bring out the punt team, run them off, bring on the offense. Your center's only snapping if the defense moves. And yes, I saw that wide receiver flinch, but he was flinching pretty much as the defense was coming across the line of scrimmage. And yes, everybody was confused because of the action of the play. If Kirby Smart calls timeout there, I'm sure Notre Dame punts. And maybe it's different. I don't know. Notre Dame was already winning by 13 points. So I'm not sure that's going to matter in the grand scheme of things. But then you had the Riley Leonard leap for the first down and everything else that iced the game. And I go back to sitting in Marcus Freeman's office 2 days after he sent 10 men on the field for Ohio State on the goal line with the game on the line. And he had no timeouts. And he was talking about all the things he would do differently, how he would handle that situation differently. And I remember thinking, this guy's so young. He's in his 30s. He has one of the biggest jobs in college football. He's a young head coach. He's going to learn these things. It's just like Kirby Smart. You know, he'd already been in the national title game. And in 2018, he's playing against Nick Saban in the SEC championship game. They run that crazy fake punt that had no business working and that they shouldn't have run. And you think, okay, he'll learn. And he did, and he won 2 national titles. Marcus Freeman has learned. The things that Marcus Freeman was already doing right, you saw in this game. The roster building, the construction, the stuff he's improved upon, you also saw in this game. The game situation management. I mean, this was that situation, it's a gutsy call, but it's actually not that risky for Notre Dame. Like, even if you jump, like, let's say that the receiver had blatantly jumped before the defense jumped and they call a false start. Well, you're punting from 5 yards further back, but you're still just punting there and you're still winning by 13. Like, it was a great call for the situation because Georgia wasn't ready for it. And so when you outfox one of the best coaches in the country in Kirby Smart, that's huge. But I mentioned that there are things that Marcus Freeman's been doing right all along that you knew if he put everything else together, it was going to be pretty incredible. So the roster construction for Notre Dame, that's the biggest difference. Like, remember, Notre Dame made the BCS championship game in 2012, and they played against Alabama and got shelled. They made the 12-team playoff in 2018 and 2020, but they just weren't deep enough. And I remember they're playing Clemson in 2018 in the Cotton Bowl. And that Clemson team was loaded. That's the Clemson team that went on to just crush Alabama in the national title game. Loaded receiving core, T. Higgins, Justin Ross as a freshman when he was unstoppable. And remember, Notre Dame had Julian Love, who was one of the best corners in the country. And Julian Love gets hurt in the first quarter and goes out for the rest of the first half. And Clemson just picks on his replacement over and over and over again, just throwing downfield. And by the time Love comes back, it's 23-3 and the game's over. And they end up winning 30-3. That's the thing about Notre Dame. It was always they had a pretty good starting 22, but if somebody important went down, they were done. And I remember thinking about that last week when I was in South Bend watching them play Indiana and Riley Mills, the defensive tackle, gets hurt at the end of the game. I thought the old Notre Dame, this would have been, oh God, what's going to happen? Because you find out later he's out for the season. That didn't stop their defense from being dominant against Georgia. It didn't stop their defense from exposing Georgia's lack of playmakers, even though they lost one of their best defensive tackles. And this has been the story of Notre Dame's season. They've lost guys since preseason camp. They've been losing guys. Charles Jagasaw was supposed to be their starting left tackle. He got hurt in camp. They had to start a true freshman. They lost another offensive lineman for the season early. They've lost They've lost corners for the season. Like, they have lost a lot of really good players and been able to replace them and played against a team that is one of the deepest in the country. Now, is Georgia as deep as they were when they won 2 national titles in a row a couple of years ago? No, they're not. The sport has flattened. And Ari and I have talked about this quite a bit, where, the playoff has taught us maybe it hasn't flattened as much as we thought, but it has flattened where the superpower teams, the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Ohio States, well, we'll see about Ohio State, but they're not quite as deep as they were, because they were prohibitively deep before. And then the next tier has gotten deeper, and that's Notre Dame. Now, part of that, though, is not because of NIL or the rules changing. It's because they have a coach who's a really good recruiter, who knows how to build a roster. I want to read you a quote. Somebody sent me this during the game. I want to be in an environment where I have the resources to win a national championship. And I came down here because I want to be in the American League East. That's Brian Kelly talking about why he left Notre Dame for LSU. He left Notre Dame because he wanted to be in an environment where he has the resources to win a national championship. Well, guess who's closer to a national championship than Brian Kelly? Marcus Freeman. Because Marcus Freeman's about to go play Penn State in the Orange Bowl, and the winner of that game is going to play for the national title. Now, Brian Kelly has made the Final Four. He's made the final game. So this is not to say that Brian Kelly isn't capable of this. He is capable of this at LSU. But I don't know that he would have been capable of this at Notre Dame, because I don't know that he is the aggressive recruiter required to build a roster this deep at Notre Dame, where it's a little bit harder. You are fishing from a slightly smaller pond than the schools that you are allegedly peers of. They do have a little bit higher academic standards. They do treat football a little bit differently, where it's not just separate from the campus environment. Like, it's different at Notre Dame. Now, it's come back toward the Ohio States and the Georgias and the Alabamas a bit, but it's not that different than it was when Brian Kelly was coaching there. Marcus Freeman's just built a really good roster. And look, if we go back, I wrote about this last week. Marcus Freeman is also quite responsible, had a big hand in building that Cincinnati roster that became the first Group of 5 team to make the 14 playoff. So this guy may be a great coach. We're going to find out. We're going to find out, because now we get the can they win the Big One Bowl against Marcus Freeman and James Franklin, but Marcus Freeman just won a really big one. A really big one. You know, he's going to say beating Georgia's easy. This Georgia team, yes, they had their flaws, and Gunnar Stockton had to replace Carson Beck, and that's a problem, but I just went down the list of how many different players Notre Dame's had to replace all season. Jeremiah Love went down in this game, and Jadarian Price picked up the slack and then some. So the depth on this Notre Dame team is very good. They're probably going to open as a slight favorite against Penn State. We'll see if the bettors push it one way or the other, but they're probably going to open as a slight favorite against Penn State in the Orange Bowl. And I think if you want to go position group by position group, you're going to feel like this is a pretty even matchup. So Notre Dame is right there. And the thing you wondered about is Marcus Freeman in a big game. Can he do it? Schematically, will the moment be too big? You go back to the Ohio State game last year. The moment was too big. He said he was going to learn from it. He clearly did. They go and lose to Northern Illinois. He mentions it over and over because you got to keep learning from it. They clearly did. This is really fascinating to watch, because we're watching Marcus Freeman grow up as a head coach before our eyes. I mean, again, it's a huge job. It's a huge job to get in your mid-30s. He's 38 now. And he is always going to have this one. Like, this is the biggest win for Notre Dame football since the 1980s. Lou Holtz was the head coach the last time that Notre Dame won a game this big. Notre Dame is a 1.5-point favorite on FanDuel right now against Penn State. So this is going to be fascinating. This is going to be so much fun to watch. When I saw the punt team running off the field, I was like, what is this madness? What is this fire drill? And then when you see the replay and you're watching Notre Dame's center calmly over the ball, watching to see what the Georgia players do. And as soon as one of them hops over, he snaps. Because when I saw them snap the ball initially, I was like, are they crazy? Why are they even trying to run a play here? Oh, so many bad things can happen. But the only way he was snapping was if somebody jumped. So it was either going to be Georgia jumping off sides and Notre Dame getting a first down, Notre Dame getting called for something and having to punt from a little further back. Like, there was no real risk to that. And that's the beauty of what Marcus Freeman did. He did the thing that looked risky, but then put all the pressure on Kirby Smart to make a decision. And the decision probably would have been either slow play your substitutions, which is what Brett Bielema did the entire game against South Carolina the other day, or call timeout because they're just going to punt if you call timeout. It was a really brilliant strategy. It didn't have a lot of downside for Notre Dame when you realize what's exactly going on there. Chatter Cheesecake in the chat says bye week equals equalizer. Yeah, we'll see about that. Now, I think it's a little bit weird this year because in two cases, the team that didn't have the bye was significantly more talented than the team that did have the bye, and that's the Texas-Arizona State game and the Penn State-Boise State game. But in the other case, Ohio State had a chance to flush all the bad stuff from the Michigan game to show the new Ohio State, to build the confidence that the new Ohio State could emerge. And then they just dump trucked Oregon. Like, Oregon did not look ready for any of that. And in this game, now I think Georgia probably pretty glad they had the time to get Gunnar Stockton ready. And I thought once they turned him loose, he actually wasn't bad this game. But he still, I mean, they suffered from the same problems Carson Beck's Georgia offense suffered from, in that they don't have a lot of dynamic playmakers. Trevor Etienne was not what we thought he was going to be this season. I thought, okay, he's had time to get fully healthy. He's going to be explosive. He wasn't. He wasn't nearly as explosive as Notre Dame's backs. And that's the thing. There were multiple positions where Notre Dame was better than Georgia. And I don't think you would have said that 2-3 years ago. But Marcus Freeman has made this team more talented. We'll see what they do about the bye weeks. It will be, I think, probably a decision about the seeding more than the bye weeks, because I think Oregon having to open with Ohio State is no reward. Penn State losing to Oregon and then getting an easier path than Oregon shouldn't happen. Georgia, they don't really have an excuse here. They should have beaten Notre Dame. If they were better than Notre Dame, they would have beaten Notre Dame. But Notre Dame was better than Georgia today and for most of the season. Notre Dame built a roster that was capable of going toe-to-toe with Georgia and beat them soundly. So, congratulations to Marcus Freeman. Congratulations on building the roster. And congratulations on learning. I remember writing a column after that Ohio State game, after that on that Monday. I talked to him for a while, and he went through all the different things that he would have done differently, that he will do he basically was saying that we will do this from now on. We will put protocols in place to make sure this never happens again. And I was confident that he seems like the kind of guy who's going to follow through on that. And he certainly has done that. And then they lose to Northern Illinois, and you're like, uh-oh, maybe now there's another problem. Maybe now there's a prep problem. Getting your team ready to play consistently every week. But that didn't stop him either. I think we can stop mentioning the Northern Illinois game as a reason they don't belong. They just beat the SEC champ. They belong. Now the question is, can Notre Dame win a national title? We'll be back in about an hour, me and Ari, breaking it all down. talking about both Final Four matchups. This is going to get very exciting here in the next week. We'll talk to you soon.